Welcome to the National Women's Fitness Academy podcast. We're here to talk about women's health, female hormones, body image, and all things health and fitness.
Hello, girls, and welcome back to another episode of the Women's Fitness Academy's podcast. I'm your host, Siggy, and I hope you're enjoying your day wherever you are. I have a special guest with me today. Her name is Hannah. For those who don't know Hannah Tucker, she is a holistic health coach, and her approach to coaching is getting to the root cause through functional blood analysis, where she can help you level up your body health. And not just physically, but also emotionally, spiritually, would you say, Hannah?
Somewhat can play on that, but I will usually refer out when we sort of hit that point. But yes, can play on it.
Yeah, I don't know why that came to mind. Maybe it's just because I'm like into the woo. And when I think of like holistic health, you see that fundamental of like nutrition, training, mental, spiritual, whatever. So I'm like, maybe around there. But before I continue on about asking you all the amazing questions that I have about functional blood analysis and holistic health, I would love for you to share with our audience, how did you discover this importance of taking this like health first approach to your coaching, but also to your own life, focusing on holistic health?
Yeah. So for me, it's a bit of a story, a bit of a journey. So to give you like a little bit of context, I have been in the fitness industry for about 6 years now. And I'm sure you've probably, in fact, I know actually you have experienced this as well, but like being a new coach in the industry, I feel like it's really easy to get swept up in looking a certain way, having to behave in a certain way, do these certain things. And for me personally, that resulted in me wanting to step on stage, which I know a lot of coaches sort of go through some kind of like competition, whether that's powerlifting, whether that's bodybuilding, whether that's endurance-based sports. I feel like most coaches kind of fall into that in some degree. So for me, my first sort of thing was bodybuilding. And it was like quite an intense process for me. I decided to compete in 2020, which was obviously our first year of COVID. The decision to do that was like pre-COVID. But then I guess sort of moving through that year, we were in and out of lockdowns. My shows got cancelled 3 times and changed dates and all of that kind of thing. And so I ended up being in a prep for 9 months. And as you know, some people may or may not know, you prep for sort of like anywhere between 4 and 6 months, let's say. And so a 9-month prep, as you can imagine, did start to play on my mental well-being as well as physical. And it created for me like quite a poor relationship with food. I was like, because when the show would get cancelled, I'd be, let's say I was 12 weeks out when it got cancelled, I'd then be back to being 20 weeks out. So it would be like, I can be a bit more flexible again. My calories would go up. I'd see that figure and be like, oh my God, I can eat more food again. And then it just created this like binge, restrict. Like I think back to that time and I'm like, oh my God, like my poor body, my poor mental well-being, all of the things. It's like literally the definition of yo-yo, because it was like, this is happening now, then it's not. So I was like, I can eat this now I can't. So for me, that was kind of like the start of the end of a really poor relationship with food and body image. Up until that point, like throughout my life, I'm like quite lucky to have never sort of gone through anything serious through high school. You hear about some girls who did have to work through some kind of troubling times at a younger age. I was sort of lucky enough to not have to go through that until I was about 22, I think I was when this happened. And yeah, so that sort of for me was where I started to, I guess, like lose sight of my why of being in the fitness industry. I got really fixated on what I looked like, what people thought of me. I definitely was like seeking validation from people being like, oh my God, you look amazing. You've done this thing. You've stepped on stage. That's a huge achievement, blah, 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 blah. And then I actually ended up the following year losing my period for about I think it ended up being maybe 8 months. And in amongst all of that, I had met some people who were sort of working a lot more in the holistic space. And I was like, this is really cool what they're doing. You know, I was like really interested in the things that they were teaching me. I was like, I'd heard about blood work like briefly, but I didn't really understand what that meant. I was like still very much in that, like, if it fits your macros, counting calories kind of era. Whereas these people were talking about, you know, eating 4 meals a day that were like predominantly whole foods. And it was about quality of food, not what's kind of macros are in the food. It was sort of about what's in your food. And I was like, wow, there's like this a whole different realm to what I've been sort of consumed by in the bodybuilding world. And then when I lost my period, I was like, okay, I know for some people this would be like a, fuck, how good is this? I don't have a period. But for me, and like learning what I was learning along the way, I was like, something's not right. Like I feel terrible. I've lost, you know, lots of weight. I'm super stressed. My reproductive system has shut down. Like something's going on here that I want to be able to sort of manage myself. So as any sort of general person does when something goes wrong, you go to the doctor. So I went to the doctor and I was like, I haven't had a period for X amount of time. I've just gone through 3 really big life changes. Like I'd had a really big breakup. I'd shut my business and then I'd moved states. So all of that happened within 3 months. And I was like, something's not right. I don't feel, you know, the way that I should. And the doctor was like, all right, you know, we'll do some tests, see where things are sitting. Did some blood work. They told me I had PCOS off the back of I'm not really sure what, but they, you know, she said, oh, yep, you've got cysts on your ovaries. We hadn't done an ultrasound, hadn't done blood work, but, you know. And she was like, you've got PCOS, that's why you're not bleeding. You're obviously just like, you know, stressed. Here, let's put you back on the pill and we'll bring your period back. That old chestnut. And, you know, like, luckily I was surrounded by people who were like, that's not the answer. You know, we can definitely dig deeper and figure out what's going on, because when these sort of situations happen, you can start to see why young females especially can get swept up in sort of doing what this authoritative figure has told you to do, even though it may not necessarily be the best option for them. It's definitely an option, but it's not necessarily like the best option. So for me, I decided to take like an alternate route, and I started actually studying a functional medicine and nutrition course so that I could gain the knowledge myself to be able to, I guess, help anyone else who I encountered along my coaching journey to work through like this sort of experience. Because for me, I didn't feel like I had that support around me, or anyone to work with until I met more people that I could just go, yeah, okay, I know that you know what you're talking about. You're going to be able to help me do this without just prescribing me an oral contraceptive pill. So I started studying, through the Institute of Health back then, and that they specialize in understanding blood work and learning how to analyze that. And that's sort of how I landed where I am now. But I did end up working with someone who, as like a lot of girls who listen to this podcast may know, Holly Sinclair. I started working with her. Yeah, she's an angel, isn't she? I started working with her in order to get my period back. And obviously she is an extremely knowledgeable woman in the women's health space. So I learned a lot from her as well. But it was kind of that personal journey for me sort of led me to where I want to be, purely from a fact of like, I want to be able to help someone else who's going through what I went through, and like enable them to have that support that I probably really lacked for the initial sort of process of my journey.
Mm. I can relate to literally everything that you had mentioned, like from the beginning to where you're at right now. And I actually covered this on my podcast, The Confidently Outspoken, on the first episode, speaking about my journey from binge eating to self-discovering my habits. And it's not spoken openly enough about these days. I think, again, like I can relate to this, you can relate to this, that we hold so much guilt and shame for the past, of our past behaviors, the choices, the decisions that we've made, but we don't tend to give ourselves enough credit for how far we've come and how we can help other people overcome this as well. And for those who want to learn a little bit more regarding women's health as well, Holly Sinclair was actually a guest on the podcast. So I highly suggest for you to scroll through and see where you can find that episode, because it will be very beneficial. Regarding the bloods, it's so interesting and so common for certain professionals to give you a certain opinion or advice about something that obviously hasn't been properly tested. You mentioned like a red flag in my eyes was just like, oh, she diagnosed you with PCOS, yet there was no actual test done for that. And we know with bloods, PCOS doesn't necessarily come up in that. So it's just like, where did she gather that information from? Like, why did that happen?
What I found through my own process, and something that I actually have had a doctor say to me, like indirectly, is that sometimes when they don't know, they sort of assume. And do you know what? In a situation like mine, where it is definitely a symptom of PCOS. I had gained a little bit of weight. I was having irregular cycles. Well, I hadn't had one for 9 months, but it's considered irregular. But they do, when they don't know how to, I guess, treat what's in front of them, they just kind of make an assumption, or they turn to pharmaceuticals, which is what they've been taught. So on one side, I have to be like somewhat, I guess, like understanding of it, because how can you be a specialist in every single category? You know, as a GP, you've got to deal with so many different cases, and that is to their credit. Like, they are very knowledgeable people. But what I don't agree with is like when something is brought to their attention that they don't know what to deal with, that's where I think they should actually have really good relationships with people like Holly, or, like myself or something, where they can go, you know what, I can only help you thus far, but from here, I actually don't know how to specialize in women's health, or I don't know, how to help you fall pregnant naturally, or, whatever it might be. And I think there's such a divide unnecessarily, where like what I do and what Holly does, and, we could have such a mutual relationship with doctors, but they are not willing to sort of take a less medicinal sort of approach, which I think is unfortunately sort of how things have ended up the way that they have now. But I think as well, like for me, being able to like look at things from another point of view is really beneficial, because by all means, like I think Western medicine has its place, and there's definitely situations where we need it, and, we do need pharmaceuticals and all of that. But I also think the ability to look at it from a little bit more natural, a little bit more holistic point of view just kind of gives people another option. Like, you're not sort of being cordoned into this one thing where you're almost being told what to do. Like, you've got to do this, or you're never going to get better, or like there's always alternate ways. And that goes for kind of everything in life. I think nothing is ever just a one-way street. So I think for me, that was like another really big turning point, was just to be able to give like both clients and myself like the option to look at things alternatively.
Yeah, it's so important. And you made such good points. Like, there is the benefits of, having those type of professionals, the medicine side of things. And we've also seen sort of like the holes in between, where we can take more of a holistic approach towards our health, and not necessarily just applying medicine all the time. And I see this too often. I'm going to just like call my parents out on this. But again, like relying on Panadol for a headache or Nurofen. It's just like, it's like a joke in my household. It's just like, you have a headache? Well, just pop a pill. And I always challenge that now. And I think it's also from like a really young age. I've always been very, very open to exploring other ways, whether obviously it's through the holistic health, but anything. Like, someone would say something and I would actually question it, not in a rude way to like challenge them, but like going, well, if that's one way, surely there's another way. And if there's not another way, it's like, it's more of like an open-minded way of thinking.
Yeah.
And I remember, it's funny because it's all over TikTok as well, when the girl's like, oh, I think I have a headache. And the guy's like, oh, have you drunk enough water? like such a simple thing to look at. It's just like, actually, no, I haven't. Okay, well, fucking drink up, and then you'll
Yeah.
notice that your headache will be gone. But too often people don't think about that because they've been conditioned to just pop pills for the pain.
And I think like that for me as well is another big driver is like, yes, we can pop pills. Like there's no doubt that, some of them work, some of them probably do more harm than good, but they all have their place. But for me, I think it's also like, why is this happening? And like always oh my God, sorry. Sorry. Always for me is like, I want to know why I'm doing something or why I'm taking something or, whatever that might be. So again, it could be like, so for example, for me, I'll use myself as an example. Why did I lose my period? Like that just doesn't happen. Your body just doesn't shut down its reproductive system for no reason, right? So for the doctor to give me the pill to bring back my period, I'm like, that to me doesn't really make any sense, because I need to figure out why I've lost it in the first place. Like I shouldn't have to take something to bring back a natural process. Like that's not like I'm missing things there. So I think it's really important to understand like why things are happening. And that's where the more holistic approach is definitely, I guess, a more positive thing, because you do, in order to take a holistic approach, you do need to dig deeper. You can't just go, okay, this is what's going on, here's a pill, because that's not a natural way of doing things. So I think me learning how to, I guess, understand why things happen, like again, losing cycles is generally from under nutrition, overtraining, stress, it could be environmental toxins, all of those kind of things. And they're all things that we can change without taking medication. Like we can pull back on training. That's something I had to do. And it was really challenging for me, don't get me wrong, because at that point in time in my life, I sort of identified as that, fit, lean, training was everything kind of girl. And I had to really let go of that, because I was like, for me, like optimal health is having a healthy cycle. And right now I've got conflicting values, because I'm preaching one thing, but I don't actually embody that. So, there's a misalignment there as well. So, I had to pull back on training. I had to start eating more, which again is super scary for a lot of females. I know can fully understand that as well. And started to, control stress, cutting negative relationships out, or having stronger boundaries in work, or, whatever that kind of looks like per person. And like all of those things didn't require any medication, and I got my period back. So it kind of goes to show that if you actually sit and deal with what's going on, or what's being presented with you to you in symptoms, or doing a bit of a lifestyle overhaul, more often than not we can deal with these things in a natural way, and which is what the human experience is meant to be about. So for me, that's like the biggest thing I think is like figuring out the why and making sure that both, whether it's me or whether it's a client, understands that.
And this process helps us identify the root cause, as you mentioned, not necessarily just relying on the medication side of things, but really having a better understanding of, your own, or even like clients, their understanding of their health on a much deeper level, which obviously gives us a really good insight of like why holistic health is so valuable.
Yeah, exactly. And I think like people get a bit like, I think, overwhelmed with like the words root cause, because it can be like, what is that, and it does differ from person to person, and it is a really broad, I guess, term. But I think like people, the thing that I notice the most when I look for a root cause, I guess, is like stress is the biggest thing ever. And what people don't like, when I say the word stress, clients are always like, I'm not stressed, like I'm fine. And I'm like, stress comes in so many more forms than just emotional. If someone asks you like, oh, you stressed at the moment, more often than not, you're probably like, no, I feel pretty, like for me, okay, I'll again use myself as an example. If you were to ask me, am I stressed at the moment? No, I'm pretty cruisy. Like, work, I'm like happy in work, I'm happy in my relationships, whatever. However, my body is under so much stress because I'm training for a half Ironman, and people forget that physical stress is just as important as at recognizing as emotional or psychological stress, because it puts your body in that fight or flight response. And that's exactly the same, whether that's, through the brain or through actual physical impact. And so usually what I see like root cause wise will be like stress management all the time. Obviously you have your cases where sometimes it's like gut microbiome, whatever that might be. But like the biggest thing for me that I think that we lack at sort of being able to regulate, and you would probably know this through work as well, is our stress levels and stress management.
100%. And I love that you were able to give everyone a good insight that it's not just about stress emotionally, mentally, it's like the physical side of things. And too often, a very fucking common thing that we see in the health and fitness industry is everyone overtraining and under eating. And when that cycle perpetuates, guess what happens? You become ill, you lose your cycle, your sex drive declines, like all the shitty things that you can think of fucking happen. So it's just like, okay, like where am I doing too much with my training? How can I change that up or managing it? And too often when people talk about stress, they think they have to like find this balance. And I fucking love talking about this because nothing in life is balanced, even though it's like this buzzword, let's find a balance with nutrition. I'm like, cool. You might be in a season right now where your balanced nutrition is just maintaining calories. But who knows, maybe next month or next year, you want to go down and diet again. Yeah. Or you want to start strength training and you're wanting to bulk, whatever it is. Like every season has a meaning. So it doesn't necessarily mean it's balance. And it's just like, again, another question that I always ask people, I'm like, what does balance mean to you? Because it's not necessarily a 50-50. It might be like a 30-70 or fucking 10-90. Like it's so different. And while I'm talking about that, I want us to like bust a little bit misconceptions around the aspects of women's health. Like we've covered so much so far, but like what are some misconceptions around women's health that you often address through your coaching approach?
I think the biggest one for me is probably like contraception and the lack of education around it. I will never push anything on anyone. I'm like a really big believer in we are entitled to make our own decisions. I've got a lot of clients that are on contraception and I will never, push them to come off it. All I will do is educate and tell them, what the potential side effects are, or, what it means to be on certain types of contraception. And I think the more information that's coming out as, the years are going on, it's amazing now because even, 5 years, I was on the pill for 10 years. I only came off it 4 years ago, I think. And prior to that, I had no idea, I didn't realize, everything it was depleting for me, that I didn't even know I didn't have a natural cycle. Like I thought that was a real period. And it's things as simple as that females just aren't educated on. So I think there is a really big misconception around the fact that like contraception is, I don't want to say, I need to word this really well. I want to say like, it's not as safe as it's sort of made out to be to us from an early age. And I think just making sure that women are educated on, I guess, like the other again, going back to having another option, it's not everything is just this one way street that I think from a young age that's sort of pushed upon us. Mm-hmm. That's probably my number one thing would be contraception. Another thing I think with women's health is it's so specific. I guess understanding as well, like PCOS is another one that a lot of girls I know, the label kind of just gets slapped on them. And I think it's really important for females to know you can't diagnose PCOS with an ultrasound alone. And that's what happens a lot of the time, because you need to sort of look at it in unison with blood work and it'll be evident looking at the two. But a lot of doctors will just do an ultrasound and go, yeah, there's cysts on your ovaries. However, like that can happen from like lots of different reasons. And I can use myself in this example again. After losing my period and not ovulating for 9 months, I had a buildup of cysts in my ovaries, and they are now no longer there because I've gone through the process of healing my cycle. But at the time, it looked like I had PCOS, but I actually didn't. So it's really easy, I think, for females to be labeled things without sort of digging deeper and figuring out what exactly is going on. So I think it's really important for females to kind of like take back their power a little bit and sort of try and dig deeper when something doesn't feel right. If something does feel right, and someone's told you've got X, Y, and Z, or this is what's going on, and you're like, yeah, that sort of checks out, like that's how I'm feeling, then that's fantastic. But I think there is definitely the space and ability for females to kind of take a little bit more control again and go, you know what, I want to dig a little bit deeper into this and not just be slapped with a label or a medication. Or it's the same thing I've seen with a few clients who may be like slightly overweight and have gone to the doctor to maybe investigate thyroid problems or whatever, slapped with a medication, and so I think it's one of those things, like, I guess these aren't exactly misconceptions, but I think it's important to highlight in women's health. I think because women have always taken the passenger seat for a really long time, that now sort of as we move into this more modern world where women are a lot more, I guess, stronger in what we do and who we are and stuff, to sort of lean into that. And when something doesn't feel right, or you do feel like, you've been told something that isn't particularly how you're feeling or whatever, that you can kind of investigate that a little bit more. Does that kind of help you? That was
but to be honest, like, it's so common. And I love the fact how you mentioned that previously we were passengers and being taking everything on board from other people, and not necessarily, and this is not to speak about everyone, but from our own experience, is like, we get told to do something and we just do it because we didn't know any better or any different, where now there's a flora of information there. And now you can make that choice whether you're wanting to take that medication. Well, let's refer back to the contraception pill, whether you do take it or not. It's interesting because I've had many conversations around the contraception pill, and certain women have this fear of coming off it because they don't know what to expect after it. And I get that, because I remember when I got off the pill, I didn't know what it was going to be like. I was in my mid-20s anyway, so I had no understanding of what the symptoms were going to be, where now I think because there's so many stories out there now, it's even more fearful for women to come off it, because they're like, well, I don't want to get my acne back. I don't want, like PMDD symptoms. I don't want to have a heavy flow. I don't want to have PMS and all this stuff. And it's just like, well, you can prevent that, because if you take a holistic approach to your health, these certain symptoms are not necessarily they're not necessarily going to happen. Like, yeah, it may happen within like a certain period of time. We know cycles tend to happen every 90 days. So it takes 3 months for you to regulate your cycle, and then ongoing process. But it's so interesting how they're like, oh no, I'd rather just stay on the pill. And then when I want to have babies, then I'll come off it and then I'll have a baby. And I'm like, babe, I wish it was that fucking easy for you, because like a little bit of a alert here is it's not as simple as people make it to be. Like, you don't just come off the pill and all of a sudden you get pregnant. Yeah, sometimes it happens, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's healthy as well.
Correct. And I think with that as well, like for me, when I hear women say, oh, but I have a really heavy flow, or I get acne or this, I'm like, again, this is like full circle back to what I've been saying. Why? There's a reason why that's happening, whether that is being, it's coming from the gut, or it could be a past trauma thing, because, obviously we store trauma in the body. So there's so many factors at play. And when we mask it with the pill, for example, when we're talking about this, it's literally a Band-Aid. So for me, I'm like, okay, yes, I understand that that's going to be an uncomfortable process for you coming off the pill and having to deal with these things, but wouldn't you want to figure out why that's happening? And then we can sort of treat it from there. And then you'll probably live a life pain-free because we've actually gotten to, again, the root cause. So it's you can see how everything sort of starts to like build and kind of paints a picture for you. But it is, I also get the other side when young women are like, I don't want to have to go and have shit skin and put on weight and do this because it's a societal pressure thing to look a certain way, be a certain way. Females are like, I can't go through 3 months, like 3 months of potentially having acne or putting on 5 kilos. God forbid, so it's such a hard one. And I think like for me as a coach, that's probably like my point of difference is I am really understanding because I fucking get it. Like, and you'd probably be the same. It is a tough pill to swallow to be told you might put on X amount of weight, your skin might break out, you might do this, you might do that. It's so hard to be told that and to also go through that. Like you and I have both gone through weight gain journeys, weight loss journeys, all of those things. You get people telling you you look amazing, but you feel like shit. You've got, it's the like psychologically it's wild being a female, and it's something men will never ever understand because they don't have that pressure in the same way that we do. So for me, on one part, I can fully understand why people do take specific routes that they take, but then I can also rationalize with myself and be like, yes, okay, it might take a bit longer to do it the way that I now do things, and it might be a bit more of a process, a bit more of a journey. You're going to encounter a lot more hurdles, but how rewarding to have gone, I fucking got through that. My body is like as optimal as it can be. I am in like, the best position I can be in. I would rather choose that path. But I can also, I see both. It's like full devil angel things, I think, in this industry now.
Yeah, 100%. And you made such a good point. Like we all have the choice to decide what we're wanting to do and what path to take. And like to be honest, like this could probably be like another conversation for another time in terms of like the societal pressure for women. And too often we think of the worst case scenario before we actually think of what are the benefits are coming out of, us coming off the pill or taking an alternative way to take care of our health. I would love to finish up with the conversation of what is like a major success story that you've been able to help a coaching client through, your analysis of understanding blood, but also being able to significantly improve their health and well-being.
Yep. Okay. I mean, I have a few of like different ones that I love, but one for me that really was like a moment was I had a client with chronic fatigue and long COVID, and their energy was like they were struggling to even kind of like function from day to day. And to be honest, like this one for me was actually really challenging. Like we did like crazy amounts of tests, like lots of money spent, and like there was like improvements and then not. Like you can't, it was like a bit of a, we'd get better, we'd get worse, we get better. And it really tested me as a coach. Like I was like, oh my God, maybe I don't know what I'm doing. It was one of those moments where it was like, if I can't help them get better, like it made me sort of second guess everything, but I was like, I know I can do this, just keep persevering, working. And like I think the reason that we got through it and it worked so well is because we worked together. It wasn't like a push and pull, we just worked in unison, did everything that we needed to do. But essentially, like on the other side of all of this, so like this person couldn't pretty much get out of bed some days. They were like super, super, super fatigued. Exercise was off the cards, hadn't exercised for maybe 6 months, had quite a few nutrient deficiencies as well, and diet definitely needed to be overhauled there. So we did all of that stuff, had like slight improvements, then we dropped back down, slight improvements, as I said, that kind of thing. But we sort of just kept on persevering, found out some new information through some more tests, and then finally sort of got an answer as to what was going on or where we were sort of hitting these roadblocks. And so coming like to things now, this is probably about 6 months ago now, and this person is very healthy, back to exercising, blood work is sitting in a more optimal place. Chronic fatigue never exactly goes away. So we sort of manage that as it comes and goes. But being able to like get this person out of bed, having more energy again, having, 4 solid meals a day, exercising again, just getting them as like, it sounds so basic because for so many people, that's just an everyday thing. But for someone who's had that taken away from them, like that, to be able to just do the basics again is like one of the most rewarding things to see. And I think this is like a little bit off topic, but for me, what I think in this industry as well is being able to nail those basics is like, that's health to me. I don't care if you can bench press 200 kilos or, squat 200 kilos. If you can like get out of bed, have really healthy people around you, have a great diet, move the way that you want to move, not for the validation from other people, all of that. I think that for me is like the definition of health, whereas other people in this industry have to have, other things that provide that sort of satisfaction to be like, oh, I'm fit or I'm healthy or whatever. So as basic as that sort of client sounds, that for me was just like the biggest, like I've just changed someone's life from a sense that they were essentially bedridden to now they can go for walks with their partner, they can go to the gym, they can eat food, they can stay awake, like that kind of thing was like a massive thing of being like, I did that. So I know that's probably a really random example, but for me, that's one of my favorites.
I think we all have a favorite of success stories, and it can just resonate with everyone else listening to right now that there is the possibility of making change, even though your brain tries to tell you stories and manipulate you by saying, no, like this is just a lost cause. This is how you're going to live the rest of your life. It's just like being a little bit more open-minded about the fact that you can change and things, do change over time. And it's also about exploring and getting the professional help around it, because too often, again, like it might not be our listeners right now, but like I've definitely fallen into the pattern where we're talking years ago, where I would just go and Google or YouTube and try and find like the diagnosis and be like, cool, so this is what I have, so I'm just going to do that. And it's just like, that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be helpful. In most cases, it makes it worse because you don't actually have someone who's done the work, who knows what's happening within your body through that type of analysis. I love this so much. Such a good conversation. Hannah, how can people get in touch with you?
Instagram is probably the best way. My handle is just hannahtucker_NM. And then just pop in my DMs, or I do have a link in my bio as well for any coaching needs.
Perfect. Well, girls, I hope you enjoyed today's podcast. If you did, please make sure that you screenshot it and tag us at the Women's Fitness Academy. And then till then, let's start exploring a little bit better ways of bettering our health.
Damn straight.